startup report today is Sebastian Puerto, who is the founder and CEO of SunVessel. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe.
So I got to know you through Seedfunders sponsorship of the pitch competition at Synapse, which you won. Congratulations on that.
Yes, that was a very fun event and something that definitely put us on the map.
So let's dig in a little bit to what SunVessel is, just so we know what we're talking about, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, basically SunVessel is a network of easily distributed charging stations for last-mile electric mobility devices that we place inside hotels, residential buildings, and offices. This enables people to take short trips in the city without the need for a car, basically turning what, in my opinion, is Florida's biggest asset, which is real estate, into an asset to try to solve one of our biggest problems, which is our dependency on cars. So we put these beautifully designed stations that organically fit inside the lobbies of these hotels, residential buildings, and offices. So their tenants and guests can actually take rides using our devices without the need for a car.
Can you describe the devices? It's does it have a handle? How high up does it go? 2 wheels?
Basically, the devices are about 1.5 feet long. They're very small. They have a 2-wheeled non-tandem system with gyros on each wheel. Basically, it stands by itself. And it's really, really organic. It has this steering column that goes in between your legs, and you can use it to maneuver either right or left. And the person stands on our SunVessels from the back part of the device, puts their right foot first and then their left foot, and then goes on top of the device. It is very, very seamless. It's almost part of your body. It doesn't have handlebars. However, our stations, we did a study, and we found out that people love to ride our device, but in the moment they need to grab onto something is the very first time they get on or off. That's why we designed our stations to teach people how to onboard for the very first time with our design that was created by our industrial design architect from MIT. So they're beautifully designed stations that are also practical, right? People grab onto the handlebars on our stations. They use our QR code to unlock the device, and they step on this device right in front of our stations, holding on, and then they can, wiggle around and experiment their own weight and see how it actually works and move it around, and then they're free to go. So it's a very seamless process.
Let's talk about the business model a little bit. So you mentioned putting them in hotels or potentially also in higher-end residencies. How does the company make money?
Great question. We have basically 3 different revenue streams. First revenue stream, or let's put it this way, model, is our net zero amenity. Basically, this is great for properties who want to offer the latest and greatest in transportation amenities, which is SunVessel, but in a way that doesn't really affect their bottom line, right? And the way to do this is basically these properties pay us an upfront fee, but this upfront fee comes to the beginning of every month. And then we charge their tenants, their guests, the end users, based on each trip that the user takes. At the end of the month, our objective is to make back the investment that these properties make. So the revenue generated from each station, part of that revenue goes back to the property, making it a net zero amenity for that property. So SunVessel would potentially be free for them. That's the first model. The second model is actually when properties do not want to offer their guests or do not want to charge their guests for every ride they take. They just want to offer this as something as a free service. And then we charge the properties just a flat fee for that every month. And then the third model, which is quite interesting, is we can actually co-brand both the stations and our devices with the property's logo. And the properties pay a flat fee for both the station and the device for the advertising, which is great, exposure for them, but also for the service for a flat fee per month and offering the service for free to their tenants and guests.
That's great. And other than the pitch competition that you won at Synapse, how else are you getting the word out there about your company?
Back in December, we were given the keys to Miami-Dade County by the mayor of Miami-Dade County. We've been working actually hand in hand with the transportation department here in Miami-Dade for over 2 years. So the team was very excited to actually be receiving this great honor. We recently also received the award for South Florida's Best Innovator from the Mission to Markets Department of Energy pitch competition. This traction led us to be part of Emerge 2019, where we showcased our products for the first time to the public. And we're actually featured as the cover story of the Miami Herald Also, there was this digital story about us on the Miami Herald. We received a couple stories from local press, basically telling how this, device and our stations are going to impact cities and properties at the same time. And most recently, we just finished our interview with CNN, which should be airing quite soon.
Cool. And of course, now you're on Pitch List, and this is a game changer.
Well, that's what we hope so.
I'm teasing. And this is not your first startup. You've co-founded a company before this as well. So startups are in your blood?
I think more than startups in my blood, I think what I like to do is create experiences, right? And yes, this is not my first startup. I moved 2 years ago from Silicon Valley after launching my first venture, which was CafeX. CafeX is a robotic coffee bar. We have 3 locations with a 4th location coming up very soon. We are supported by very well-known angel investors and venture capital groups such as Coastal Ventures, Kraft, Social Capital, and Peter Thiel's group. But my passion has always been transportation. I worked for Ford Motor Company many years, and I always dreamed of changing the way people move. And after being in robotics for a while, I said, why don't we use robots and these small electric mobility devices to really impact the city, but why don't we do it in a way that's scalable, that's organized? It's not just, putting all these devices out on the street and leaving them on our sidewalks. And I said, you know what, I want to incorporate design. So we're really a design and engineering company that creates a very interesting experience for people to ride without the need for a car.
You mentioned that you moved from the Bay Area to now you're on the East Coast of Florida. What's it been like from an ecosystem standpoint, starting a company out there versus starting a company here in Florida?
That's a great question. I think, living in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, you really see how that ecosystem came about, right? And the effects. One of the reasons why I came to Florida is because we are literally ground zero for the effects of climate change. And I wanted to do something about it. Even if it, doesn't generate a huge impact, I wanted to create some sort of business that helped us move differently, that helped us prevent things from happening. And that's why SunVessel came about, right? More than anything, also, I realized that South Florida has a great potential for hospitality and all these high-end, luxury buildings that are popping up everywhere. But what I've noticed more than anything is a very, very diverse startup scene. And by diversity, I mean Florida is known to be an immigration capital, right? And I didn't see that in San Francisco, like the diversity of talent, people with, different races and backgrounds actually working on something. And you really don't see the typical tech bros here running a company, right? You see a lot of, immigrants and different types of backgrounds of people creating companies. And that's why, especially from in the Miami scene, the ecosystem is very, very tight. Everybody's about collaborating. It's about how can I help you build your business so that business can help us later in the future. And that's something I loved about Florida. I loved about Florida completely because it is a whole different experience. Everybody is trying to think, how can we learn what Silicon Valley did right and at the same time not do what they did wrong, right? And hopefully we can continue on that path and get some really healthy exits that can trickle back down into creating other interesting companies.
That's great. And we have a lot of founders that tune into Startup Report. For those who are a little bit earlier on their journey than you, what are sort of some of the key insights that stick with you when it comes to starting and growing companies that you might share with people on the same path?
It's funny. The other day I was listening to How I Built This, and they were talking about Peloton. And Peloton's story is very similar to our story. In the beginning, it was very hard for them. They were also building some high-end hardware/software play, right? It takes longer than you expect. Luckily enough, the other day I was, having coffee with the CEO of Pininfarina Automobile Group, a big Italian design firm. They're launching an electric car. And I was there with him and his designers, and they were still working on their prototype. They were still trying to put things together on their, $2.5 million car. My reaction was, it's incredible that a company such as Pininfarina went through this. Or it's incredible that a company such as Peloton, which is worth billions right now, went through the same things we're going through. So I think the first lesson for, other founders is keep at it. It's going to be longer than you think. And I think the number one characteristic of, great founding teams is that tenacity. You're going to have great days. You're going to have horrible days. And then that greatness and that, negative, news is probably going to happen on the same day. And it's just about keep, going and believing in what you're doing. And if something doesn't go your way, you keep at it. You keep at it and you find a solution. I think that's what great teams do, right? They rise above.
That's great. Thank you for that. And I'll give a little plug. I love How I Built This as well. And there's not a ton of them out there. I think they're not too long. I think I've consumed most of them. We have a series on the Catalyst called Origin Stories, which is, similar. I think we're actually doing it for around the same amount of time. It's been going on for a little while, a couple of years, a year and a half. But we just had Marcin from Malwarebytes. We've had the founder of PandaDoc on, Great American Cookie Company, and a few names and a few good stories on there. So if you like How I Built This, if you want to have a listen to some similar material that's more local, you might check out Origin Story on the Catalyst.
Definitely will. Definitely will.
I know we got to hear you pitch at Seedfunders, and in addition to the stuff you've shared now, there's some really cool stuff coming down the pipe. Definitely innovating in a great way, finding some blue ocean new space in between a couple of existing categories, and I think you've got a really good path ahead. And so well done on that. And we will look forward to keeping up to date and watching your success.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's such a pleasure, and I'm excited to do something that's very different from what everybody else is doing, right?
Yes, I think you're doing it. So that's Sebastian Puerto from SunVessel, and all of your information's on your pitch list profile. If anybody wants to check it out, and as well as getting in touch with Sebastian, thanks again for your time.
No, thank you.